Hello, everyone. We'll get started. Nia's making fun of me now, for sure. Hello, Jenny. Hello, Nia. I'm going to add you as a moderator. Look, I was waiting for Nia to lead me through. Thank you guys for joining us. So my name is Roxana. I'm with the Black Mental Health Alliance. Don't make fun of me, Nia. I'm with the Black Mental Health Alliance. I didn't know I was going to be able to be talking with you today. I thought you were going to lead me through. So, I'm going to ask you all kind of stuff and be difficult. No, I'm not going to do that to you. I'm not gonna. This is an easy convo. My name is Roxana Feenster. I'm with the Black Mental Health Alliance. I didn't wear my gear today because I wanted to be fancy for you guys.
You look very fancy.
Thank you. I was trying to make mental health awareness fancy, interesting, fun. So I purposely did not overschedule us or over agenda us.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to do introductions. I'll talk about Black Mental Health Alliance a little bit because the work that we're doing at Black Mental Health Alliance is to make sure that the Black community is able to really have optimal mental health. And really, when we're talking about mental health, we're talking about everything, because if your mind is not together and healed, really, what do you have, right? You have all the things and still not have joy or peace or be able to enjoy your family, your friends. So when we're talking about mental health and the awareness of that is also including illness, wellness, the disruptive things in that, and all the things in between. So watching the news, joining social media, working maybe in a toxic environment. So all things take part in our mental health. And today, I was telling you guys at 12, Nia Jones was going to join us. And I kind of put the title on her because I had went to I viewed two of her trainings on youth and mental health. One was in Annapolis. I don't even know if you remember that one, Nia, because you were so busy at that point in time. Mm-hmm. And we had done a training and was able to participate and just like gobble up all of your wisdom. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of was like, if we can have one person that really is a guru on youth and mental health, not because, you've done so much things with youth, but just listening to what you've done with the Healing Youth Alliance and training the youth, and then also how providers, social workers can support the youth. I thought it would be good for us to talk about that just for a little bit, and why mental health awareness is important for you. One of the things that touched me about you when we met you, we all fell in love with you, Nia. Do you remember that?
I do.
Nia came to volunteer, y'all, to do. Do you remember you came to volunteer, do your hours for school? Mm-hmm. And I mean, you had the executive director at that time was Jan Peters. You had Cheryl Maxwell. You had Lynn. You had Lynn Johnson. You had Richard Rowe. And we were all so amazed by this young person who was just a Black genius, right? And she just came to volunteer, gave us a little peek of her passion around mental health. Growing up in Baltimore City, you shared with us about that, so I'm not gonna steal that thunder from you, but just to let you know, like, how much of a light you were. And you probably didn't even realize it. You were probably like, whatever, I'm just coming here, try to get my little hours and roll out. And we refuse to let you go.
No, I was just being myself. And
let you go.
I think, I tell people all the time, I came 5 years ago to volunteer and y'all never let me go home.
Mhm. And you didn't even get your hours, because that's when you found out that we didn't do therapy at Black Mental Health Alliance. We just connect to the services.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, I mean, I came here just to volunteer, do my little hours, and that's it.
No, but it has been an amazing
I was,
amazing experience.
look
Amazing.
at what I found in the
Yeah.
archives of the closet. We
Yeah,
have
that is
some of
from
our summit boxes.
that from 2 years ago?
Is it 2
I
years?
think so.
I have one of these on my computer, y'all, because I have to make sure people know that hashtag Black Minds Matter, a journal. We have our t-shirt, which I can't gracefully show right now. But this was Nia's brainchild. She's going to talk a little bit about that. That's a little drive. So I have about 10 boxes. Can you believe that? Like, so I wanted this to also be like, Nia had thought about some, what are these called? You had said they were called mental health, like the tchotchkes. What is that called?
Fidgets.
The fidgets.
Yeah.
And I also have one from, okay, it's a little dirty, y'all, because I do play with it a lot. From our last event, we had went to a Pride event and gave those away because it was a lot of young people there, and people really love those. And so at Black Mental Health Alliance, our community events, our outreach.
Black.
Look at this pen, y'all.
All things Black.
So, so this was one of the ideas that I've learned from you, and I don't know if you said that, but so this is something that I try to give away, right? Because it's like something little, but when I'm stressed out, I'm gonna tell y'all the truth. I still bite my nails, but just not as much. So if I'm sitting at my desk, I'll play with these. I also have a little brain, which I don't know what happened to it, but we're giving that box away. Nia, you, like Lamont, will get the opportunity to give a question, have some kind of thing that people have to jump through to get the box.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good to me. I like making people jump through.
Wait, did you see what Lynn said?
And we're still not letting you go.
Amen. I keep trying to get away and they keep pulling me back.
That is not my testimony. I am here as long as you all will have me. Until they say there's no more Black Mental Health Alliance, for sure.
Oh no, don't say that.
I mean, you know what I'm saying. It's not gonna happen, so I'm gonna be it, right? No, it has been just I think the heartbeat of my career to have worked with and to continue to work with Black Mental Health Alliance, specifically in the youth and college division space. To take it from, I think before I arrived, Miss Lynn and the former executive director and a couple of volunteers had done conferences here and there where they talked about work that would train adults on working with young people. Yeah. We had like a summer camp some time ago, but to continually for the last 5 years have programming for young people has been absolutely amazing. And so not a space that I saw myself in, right? Like I had dedicated my research and my work to honestly doing exactly what had been done, right? Working with adults who worked with young people. And I had, of course, worked in youth ministry, but to be handed an idea and to say, think as big and as wild and as crazy as you want to, and make an awesome event for young people, I think was a gift. And certainly has been amazing, and we've been able to double attendance every year. And so I think at our very first one we had like 30 young people, and we continue to think outside of the box. And I'm already thinking about what this year's will look like, and I don't know if Andrea is ready, but it is certain to be a cool experience.
When you say Andrea, do you mean me and Lynn too?
Everybody.
Okay. You see where you're going with it.
But yeah, certainly it will require a budget, right? And so as you said, my name is Nia Jones. I am a licensed social worker. I consult with the Black Mental Health Alliance under my company On Purpose with Nia. And then by day, I work in the HR space. I'm also a therapist right here in Baltimore. And so why was it so important for me to work with young people and to now train individuals that work with young people is because I've always done this work, whether it was staffing Baltimore City Public Schools with amazing teachers, or, being a therapist, or, writing programming for organizations. It was important to me that I make work that benefits children that look like me. And as I'm walking through school buildings, as I am, traveling in different neighborhoods, what did little Nia need in order to be healthy, happy, and whole, right? And so I talk to people all the time about how I can remember being anxious as young as 5. I can remember being depressed as young as 13. And my parents did the best they could with the information that they had. It was not, a lot of people, when they come into the therapeutic space, will then blame mom, blame dad, blame whomever. Sometimes for good reason, right? But other times,
sometimes it's our fault. It's our fault. I'm not gonna
it
lie.
is. I
said
talk
some
about
messed up stuff. So.
yeah, absolutely. But other times it's that your mom and dad or aunt or whomever raised you did the best they could with the information that they had. And so I was sent to scripture, right? And even now I'm honestly thankful for that, in that I unpack, scripture and quotes and, sermons that are able to help me mentally. But I think about when I'm creating these events and trainings, what does 5-year-old Nia need? What does 13-year-old Nia need? Because certainly people that look like me and children that looked how I looked back then, who look now how I looked back then, are in need of services. And so when we then create trainings for adults, I always talk about how, right, like, so certainly as a clinician, I know all of the, developmental psychology and all of the psychological frameworks and, clinicians that we study. But sometimes it's a lot less clinical when we're working in these spaces. And it's a lot more political and really what is going to heal a person of color, right?
Yeah.
And it may not be off the breaks of medication. It may not be that I can just take time and journal. It may not be that I can just, sit still and let me sit into a tree pose.
Right.
I love yoga. I think it's incredibly powerful, right? But what systems do we need to dismantle?
Right.
And so that's the work that we do as a part of Healing Youth Alliance, in that we spend 8 weeks with young people training them about depression, anxiety, bipolar, suicide and suicidal ideation, eating disorders. And we place a lens on it around what does this look like in our communities? And then we teach them about a concept called healing-centered engagement. And we send them into the community to train adults on how to work with them. And so I believe we're on the 8th cycle of this happening.
Something
And
like
so,
that.
yeah, and it's at this point, it has been, I want to say, almost 100 young people that we have been able to arm with tools to not only heal themselves, but to also be that first line of defense for other young people, and then to tell other adults around, like, actually that's not going to work for me, right? And here's why I know that to be true. And recently we've taken that to another level, in that last Friday we did our first session of training clinicians on these same concepts. And so to be able to then go into the community and work with young people in Baltimore. And so it's powerful work. It is difficult work. And people are always like, what do I do when I want to work with a young person? Maybe, I'm a white woman and I'm trying to, figure out how to navigate this space, or, I'm a Black person of means and trying to figure out how to navigate this space. And I always say, start, right? Like, young people are going to sniff you out.
Right.
They are going to know when you're not being authentic. So be authentic first, right? The second thing, thank them for allowing you to share space with them, right? Like, I think far too often we don't honor the humanity of younger children and teenagers and young adults. just kind of culturally. We tell children to stay in a child's place. They're, you know, forced to the kiddie table. They're not allowed to express how they feel, or to have honest dialogue about a concern or an issue. And I think that we then leave way too much understanding on the table, right? Because who knows more about what a child is experiencing than the child? And so when we as clinicians honor the humanity of those young people by saying, I see you, and at the same token saying, you're allowed to see me, it changes the clinical dynamic. And so I saw that in my work with young people, saying, I know exactly how you feel. I currently, you know, take medication for depression and anxiety, right? I know how, you know, how it feels when you're a little bit off and when you're back on. I know what those thoughts around, you know, suicidal thoughts and ideation sounds like and what that looks like. But far too often we're trained as clinicians to just be like,
talk
so
about
tell me how you feel, right? And not offering that exchange of healing. When you offer that exchange of healing, then and only then, right, can we start the process of freedom taking place. And so way too often we think that I'm going to work with a young person and all's going to be better in about 6 months to a year because the treatment plan said so. And never offer any of ourselves to those young people. And so that's the work that we teach at BMHA around. So there at some point you got to lay down that license if you're going to really do some really intentional clinical, political, healing, emotional work with young people that really need it. And so Andrea always talks about how our work impacts generations yet unborn, right? Because HYA has worked with almost 100 young people at this point, right? Those young people are going to have children. And we have planted a seed as an organization for some young people to now be healed. And imagine what that looks like for generations that I may never even get to see. And so again, it's been absolutely the heartbeat of my work.
And I think Dr. Washington had talked about that with his training. Like if therapists continue to operate in the same kind of system that has been laid down that wasn't made for our community, the Black community. I was trying to think of the exact words he was saying. He was like, we don't even have the same kind of system of being in family, of being in community. We're very close. We're very we like to share. So it's like that's the lens that we have to go. Well, not we, because I'm not a therapist, but that's the lens that the therapist has to go into the room with the client, not having that wall that's like, oh, you're over there and I'm just going to ask you and you're going to get better by just talking about it. Because it's like, that's not how our system is set up to have family and we're more communal. So it is going to take that provider. And I was thinking even more, you were talking about from 5 to 13. I've heard you talk about how being in Baltimore City is just such a anxiety producing thing. If you're listening to the ambulance every whatever, if when you wake up, you're not really sleeping and you found out someone that was your friend or that you went to school with is either got hurt, shot, or maybe they got killed even, and how that's like a whole anxiety thing.
Absolutely. And honestly, so I train the young people and clinicians and adults and really whoever will listen, right? That research is relatively new. So in 2009, we were looking at the research around comparing cities like Baltimore, Philadelphia, Compton to places that have been absolutely torn apart by war in what we would consider third world countries. And young people in Baltimore consistently experience not just post-traumatic stress disorder, they experience persistent traumatic stress, right? And so there is no after. It's not like the thing just happened and then it was over. It is persistent. I've had clients who every week we were unpacking grief all over again for another friend that was lost at their school. And so when we think about, like, 2007 wasn't that long ago. 2009 wasn't that long ago, when researchers were just thinking about the impact that race and war and trauma has on young people. And so what I always do is, right, like, this isn't new, right? The transatlantic slave trade, the African Holocaust is really a starting point for all of this persistent trauma that Black people specifically in this country have had to endure. And then, we just change it. We change the name. We change what it looks like, right? And it go from Jim Crow to the new Jim Crow. It went from, new Jim Crow to, like, this whole, right? So just changing over and over again, but it's the same story, right? The same traumas over and over again that young people are then being raised in. And so when we think about things like adverse childhood experiences, whereas the initial research looked at white children in California, if X, Y, and Z happened before the age of 18, you will be more likely to experience certain types of, physical health challenges and some mental health challenges. Well, they did the study again in Philadelphia and added 5 additional questions. Philadelphia is a sister city to Baltimore. Some of the neighborhoods look, I'm like, oh, this looks like home, right? They added 5 additional questions about feeling comfortable in your neighborhood, if you experienced racism, feeling that, a parent loved, like, all these additional questions that were very specific to the raising of a Black child. And our ACEs score went through the roof. And so then we try to figure out, okay, so why do we have all these different health challenges? Why are our young people on Memorial Day weekend here in Baltimore killing each other and drinking, underage drinking, and the pervasive use of medical marijuana? They are quite literally trying to self-medicate through trauma. Right? That's the end of the story. But we didn't even want to think about what that looked like for our children until 2007-ish. Right? That's not that long ago, right? And, certainly has impact and sustained impact, again, on those generations that we have yet to see. Heavy, right?
Just because I think about little kids going through that level of anxiety and stuff, because even 13, I think I remember being depressed, but not, I don't remember anyone really giving any support around that. And I think that's kind of why I'm so passionate now about making sure little kids get help, because we got a lot of we just have to pray if so-and-so is not feeling. And I really for a long time believed that. So I feel like that's kind of made us a little bit more behind than in other cultures as well.
Or what do you have to be sad about? I don't meet all of your needs.
Right.
And that is so steeped in white supremacy, right? Just it sounds like, what do you have to be sad about? Don't I take good care of you? Right? And so, but I don't think that it has the same, emotional connotation. So hear me when I say this, right? I don't think that our parents are treating us like slave masters. What I'm saying is it sounds just the same.
Right.
Don't I feed you, I give you a place to live, and it's like, listen, Linda, you're supposed to do that. Anything outside of that would be child maltreatment. I am sad, right? and I'm not just sad because I have a case of the SADS and because I'm a teenager and my emotions are going, haywire. This is 14 days or more of persistent crying, feelings of low self-worth, not, feeling ashamed, feeling hopeless, right? That's different.
Right.
And so we oftentimes, especially in the Black community, when it comes to things that are health related for children as well as adults, we don't put language to it.
Right.
And sometimes we put the wrong language to it. Or there is a misconceived notion of, well, what do I have to be
Right.
sad about? I'm just going to push through because I literally or figuratively can't afford to seem weak.
Right.
And so we raise generations in this damaging way of thinking and feeling.
I think it goes back to, like you said, something so powerful, not realizing that young people and little 5-year-old children have wisdom in seeing us and what they're going through. Like, not only seeing what they're going through as this is not right, like, why am I feeling this, or why am I getting treated this way, but also like when their parents are going through stuff, that they're going through it too, and they see it as not right, and we don't treat them like with that humanity of they understand things. Because like my nephew will say stuff to me, I'll be like, what? Why are you like this? Like, but he'll call you out. He'll just be like, well, that's dumb because, well, I'm like, what? No, it's not. Okay, yes, it is. Now that you say it that way, yeah, it is dumb, but that's the way. Never mind. And, like, because sometimes with them, like, you got to really think, like, oh my, that really is dumb. Why are we doing it that way? Like, why are we even saying these kind of things? And we don't really respect them enough to do that. And I even think of like how when my kids were going through or watching me go through stuff, and they would say stuff, and I'd be like, you don't even wait, that's actually that might actually be right. Like, and I had to tell my daughter because she was going through something, and I was like, but when I had you, it's like you really made my life better. She taught me so many things that I would not have seen it if she didn't tell me. Like, I remember she told me something, I said, that's not even the way, that's not. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, let's it's true.
I wouldn't have grown as much without her being my mirror, really.
Lest we forget, children and youth and teens led the civil rights movement. Right? Like, that wasn't, that wasn't the adults were certainly there to guide and to train, in which we should be. But the people that were on the front lines, those were young people.
Yeah.
And so my grandfather always says that God calls the young because they are strong.
Yeah.
And so in that, I think we have to recognize that strength, right? And then be able to make sure that that strength becomes power under control. And I think so often we in our adulthood kind of just ignore it and roll past it because for a variety of reasons. Unhealed trauma, we're too busy. I talk about this all the time when we consider the fact that the number of Black children that attempted and some that even completed suicide, especially even just during the pandemic, right? During those dark times when, we were all at home and had to shelter in place, the number of Black children that reported even contemplating suicide went through the roof. And qualitatively, what we found from Black mothers and Black caregivers, it was that, well, I had no idea. Right. And so what we do know developmentally is that children they'll ask for help. It may not be, in the way that adults will ask for it. They will always cry out. Right. The African proverb talks about how the children that are not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth.
Wow. Yeah.
That is true. And so when we thinking about these numbers of children that then completed death by suicide and, went all the way through with it. And we have adults saying, I had no clue. That we have normalized pain so much in our community, not just for adults, but also for children, that we would say, oh, I didn't know. They never said anything. Well, what were they supposed to do, Susan? Come to you and knock on your door?
And have the right explanation and words. And I think that also speaks to like how we're so desensitized, and we want our kids to be that same broken way of, I mean, all you got to do is stuff it. See, all you got to do is drink this, smoke that, like work yourself to death, starve yourself, eat too much, and you'll be fine.
Yep.
I mean, aren't we prosperous? Like, it sounds crazy, but it's like, that's literally what we do. And then it's like you said, like that, And so I know this is going to sound crazy, Nia, but I feel like that's what happened to DMX. I don't know if anyone has seen his story, his documentary. It made me so sad to see somebody who was like, his mom like did not, I guess, embrace him because he wasn't the right, didn't have the right dad. And then it's like he went through these series of things of like trying to have somebody care about him. He had a grandmother that really cared about him, but it's just like to see how he self-medicated and was like a bright light. I know he talked about dark. I know, guys, he rapped about dark stuff, but you got to put that away and think about like how when little kids are growing up, how you should feel love and you should feel accepted and you should feel this. Even if you don't say it though, that kid will know that if you're not accepting them and you're not treating them the same way, that, you know, oh, well, you don't care about me. Well, I don't care about you. And what did he do? He was very self-destructive. He was a terror in the neighborhood. Like, it just was a sad story to me. And I think of that when we're talking about kids that need just normal love, not anything extra. Because then think about it, if you're handicapped or have, you know, then they even need more. We're just talking about basics.
Right.
So we just really have to be mindful of that. Like, and really through the pandemic, Nia, you were talking about this in our, in the training that we had in Annapolis. You were talking about how a lot of abuse got caught because by accident from the background of people doing stuff, and how you had witnessed some things, and it was dialogue between me and Lynn and other people in the room about when to tell, when is that okay, why, and what did you tell me about my lens of privilege? Because you were like, well, that's because you're thinking that everyone has their face, Roxana, and everyone has this. And I was like, well, I'm not. I said, okay, a little bit. Okay, I see what you're saying. So
I don't remember exactly what I said. That sounds about right there.
Can you talk a little bit about how, like, as a therapist or as a provider, you seeing those different things and how that's what touched me, how you responded, and versus how I was kind of like, well, I don't see why you think that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, as clinicians, we're taught to make quite a few assumptions. We're trained that way. It's like being cautiously,
which is not wrong, I think, right?
I think that it's steeped in white supremacy culture. The way in which we are trained. If I'm being completely honest, right? And so what happened, and we see this because what happens, Black folk will graduate with their degree, will try to go and take the exam. And if you've been, quote unquote, in the field long enough, you have difficulty passing the exam because you don't think how they want you to think in order for you to pass the exam. And so what we find is when we see things that look like on the surface child maltreatment, sometimes it's cultural, sometimes it's an honest mistake, sometimes it is we're doing the best we can with what we have. And so I think that, you know, you have to consider all of those factors. So I you know, an example that I give around one of my first cases as a clinician was with a family. And to me, I thought that it was really inappropriate how this family was living together and how they, you know, how people would show up in the space, some half dressed, some, you know, and it was quite a few factors that would show up in the space. And when I went back to my supervisor, thank God, you know, a Black woman who understood and had been in the field, she was like, you're putting middle-class values on this family, that all they have is this 2-bedroom house and this sofa in their living space. That's all they have. Right. And so the assumptions that you're making about how they're treating a baby in this space, is the baby okay? And I was like, well, yeah. Does the baby have any bruises? No. Right. And so as she was talking me through those things, I was like, oh my God. Right. Like immediately having to undo what I had already learned around the, you know, the series of questioning. And so we want to make sure that when we're in spaces and communities of color, really being able to consider that, right? Like
Right.
we talk about in when we think about coping skills, for an example, when we work with clients, we say, why don't you get a journal and write in it? And one day I sat with that consideration that, okay, writing and journaling is cool. I like it. But what does that mean to have something that belongs to you in a Black house? Right? It means nothing. All of this is mine.
Yeah.
I am the king or queen of this castle. And anything that comes through that
Right.
door is mine. These doors are mine. That carpet is mine. That bed that you sleep on is mine, right? How dare you have a journal that you think will have your private thoughts in it, right? And so, not saying that all Black families are that way, but for the most part, you bring something in here, don't you say that I can't open it and look at it, right?
Right.
And so I'm asking you to put things in there that may include people that live in your house.
Right.
That's probably not really a culturally responsive coping skill
Right.
to provide, right? And so really thinking about other ways in which young people can express themselves. We just talked about DMX. We like to use music. We like to use art.
Yeah.
We like to use video journaling, right?
Dance.
Your mom may or may not have the passcode to your phone, right?
Right.
And so maybe you do a video journal and you get it out in your phone. You lock that puppy and nobody will ever have to hear it other than you, right? And so really reconsidering how we work with clients and help them to really to unlock their pain. Often in our communities, it comes through art, and being able to really process and think through in that way.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to like really, if we're really trying to heal people, not put our own judgments on them.
Yeah. Yep. You got to take all of that
A
and
learning. Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be a learning thing because I was like, well, what do you mean? Because we were talking about, if someone is on a video and the parent walks in and they're not fully dressed and all of those things that we may think, well, that's just abuse, which is what I thought. But because why would you even? But it's like we got to think more than that, because life is more than just those rules too. So yeah, definitely. And also thinking about how in COVID, a lot of kids were stuck at home that were getting abused and stuff. And thank goodness videos caught it and freed them from that. I think we're going to see a lot of stories come out about how COVID had actually helped a lot of people get out of abusive relations with their family.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen divorces. We've seen, people become closer. We've, seen individuals processing through their traumas because there was nowhere, you couldn't run from it.
Yeah.
And so I think that if people were able to, if they had the privilege, right, because it was a privilege to be able to work from home. There were some people that were our heroes and they were in the grocery stores when we went to go pick up something and retreated back. But if you had that privilege, if you took that time to really work on yourself, I think it will certainly, we'll see some, probably like 2047. We'll see
the year of 2047.
some research evidence.
That will really be post-COVID by then, because I think even they were talking about wearing a mask on a plane and stuff, and how it's like, that it just makes you think differently of somebody coughing, sneezing, being in your personal space.
Yep, all of that.
So
I was already
interesting. I know you hate to get hugs, but you know what's the funny thing about that? I have a child who does not like hugs, and I remember one day, it was recent, I'm ashamed to say, he was like, it's my youngest who decided that he's going to go against all the rules and do whatever and make us all feel uncomfortable. But he was like, his sister had tried to hug him, and he was like, no, I don't want to be hugged today. And she was like, I want to hug you anyway. And then I was like thinking about you, and I was like, if he doesn't want to be hugged, we shouldn't make him be hugged. I was like, if he doesn't want to be hugged, but I think later I went to him. It had have been like a couple hours later. I was like, why won't you let your sister hug you? He was like, I mean, it's besides the point. I just didn't want her to hug me at that time.
At that time.
And I was just like,
yeah. That's why he holds a special place in my heart.
I learned the lesson. I did stop them, but I still was like, why can't I hug you when I want?
You missed your window.
Like, what? Anyway, yeah. Exactly. Now it's like you gotta catch them on a good time where they want to give hugs. And
that's right.
All that stuff. And then when he does, like me and his dad are always like, oh my God, Michael, we love you. We love you, Michael. I'm looking through some of our comments. So we had a lot of people join us. Thank you guys for joining us. Midday Joy said this is good. Quincy Post said, I was just saying this, people talk out at them, I think, like they haven't experienced it. I think he was talking about the young people. Sometimes feel shameful to talk about your problems. That's another thing Quincy said. We adopted the ideology of how whites treat our pain. That's deep.
Quincy is, shout out to Quincy Poet. They've been in the chat.
Tradition is peer pressure from the dead. Good Lord.
I mean,
oh, Dr. Ken. I think that's Dr. Ken, Dr. KW. Well, hello. And she said, this is so true. Yes, we forget because people outside now, but lots of kids and adults suffered through 2020. Yes, very true. Oh, and he also was saying about DMX.
Yeah.
He's an example of Black mental health. And I remember his wife had talked about, if you haven't seen that, I guess it's not what is it? I guess it is a documentary, but it's not called a documentary, right?
Like a docuseries?
I guess. But even his wife was talking about why she had to divorce and separate from him was that he was making her go to places to like save him. And it was like, I don't need to do this for myself anymore. And how she had to realize that her saving someone she loves shouldn't be self-destructive.
Yeah, you do.
It was so many lessons in that. You have to see it for the lessons and not for like this gory thing that is because I think in America we do this thing where, oh my God, that's so disgusting. They're, like they're living this horrible life. We really eat up people's trauma and not really try to learn from it. Because if we're not trying to learn from it, what are we really doing? Dr. Bruce always says that if we're not really learning from stuff, what are we doing? We're just, sitting here just eating trauma as a candy. And that's not something that should be a practice. It's like we should learn how to do better. So
yeah, I mean, people will set themselves on fire to keep other people warm. And I think there are two ways you can take that, right? Like, so similar to what his wife was doing, right? To go into always have to put on a cape and go save him.
Yeah.
I think we also do it. We set ourselves on fire by enjoying the trauma, right? And enjoying the drama on TV, to be able to be like, well, I guess my life isn't that bad, right?
Right.
And enjoying the music, the destructive lyrics and things like that come out of trauma to make ourselves feel a little bit better. And either way you slice it, it's not healthy. It's not healthy.
So it is Dr. Ken. Dr. Ken will be on with us at 8:00 tonight, y'all. She's going to be our prime. Our 8:00 is like the prime time slot.
Nice.
All day. So Dr. Ken was so kind to pick that time. She'll be on with Andrea, and they'll be talking about, oh God, I forgot the topic. I think it's mental health after COVID, if I'm not wrong. Hi, Cheryl. Say hi to Cheryl.
Hey, Cheryl.
She's on here. And so I know, goodness, we almost went through your time, Nia.
Yeah. We talked about everything. I tried to cover all of the notes that you gave me. I think I did it all.
Yes, you did very, very, very good.
Shameless
I
plug.
think the one thing we could probably do is, wait, what's your shameless plug?
The Youth Summit.
Yes. I was going to say, go ahead.
What were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, I know we had our youth summit, like a portion in the fall. We didn't get to do like a whole activity like what you've done in the past.
Yeah.
In the past, we had pop-ups, y'all, different places around the city.
Lord.
We were at a school for one. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting one though. I'm forgetting a couple. One was Morgan. Yeah.
We were virtual 2 years during the pandemic. Last year we were hybrid. Another year, I'm missing one.
I know.
I think it was just
I feel like
at Coppin. I think it was just Coppin.
That we were just at Coppin, but you did one at Morgan too. Do you remember that? It was like Coppin, Morgan. Yeah, we had the different rooms at Morgan. Wasn't that the summit?
I don't know. I didn't write it down.
Lynn said Coppin.
Yeah.
Okay, Lynn said Coppin.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what the next chapter of that is going to be.
It's gonna be good.
And Miss Connie, so I don't know if you know this, Miss Connie is helping us with our men and boys summit that's coming at the end of June. So hello, Miss Connie. Thank you for jumping on with us today.
Hello, Connie.
The middle school, right? Yeah. Remember we had one at the middle school with Lynn was there.
Oh, Baltimore Design School. Yes. There we go. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a good we had a lot of good pop-ups, a lot of good speakers. So hopefully we'll be able to do all of those things interactively again. I know you've done pop-ups at a goat farm, which I think I passed by off of it's like at a house, and I was like, I wonder if that's the same place that Nia had went to. You see the little goats outside. It's in the city.
Bliss Meadows.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I know you're always doing pop-ups that incorporate mental health. Why? I think our last takeaway or question for you should be, why is mental health awareness so important? And I say so important because it's so important. So what is the answer that you would give us?
I think that it's so important because it all starts in the mind, right? And whether you think or agree with it or not, right? Mental health is health, right? It is healthcare. It's the most important form of healthcare as far as I'm concerned, right? So when we see individuals that are living with chronic illnesses, or individuals that are living with persistent stress and trauma, or people that, are like I always talk about how I have a chemical imbalance, right? And I will most likely take medication for the rest of my life to be able to make sure I can function in this wild world, right? And so if we consider it healthcare, right? If we talk about mental health as healthcare and not from a stigma, put baby in a corner, kind of crazy point of view, I think that we'll all fare better. And certainly if we talk about it early, right? If we're talking with small children about being able to care for their mental health, and we're working with our littlest ones, all the way up to and through as young as you feel, right? We'll continue to impact those generations that we may never see, but we'll be able to enjoy the fruit of the labor that we've done toward our personal healing.
Yes, thank you. And I think you saying that you've gotten help and seeing that you're prosperous, and I'm not saying like money, even though you do drive a Tesla that's beautiful and scared me because it turns on automatically. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. The point is being prosperous as in, you're impactful in your work, you're impactful with your son, like you have friends, like just to see that is amazing, right? And I think that helps people want to press through to get that same kind of prosperity. So I just thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And I'm sorry that I was late. The first live, I was on my own live. No one else was there. But we're all here now.
We're all here now. It's a good day. Good day.
All right. Well, I will see you guys in 5 minutes. We're going to start again at 1. So now get some water, get some juice, get something to eat. Nia,
And
enjoy your day.
send my friend Quincy Poet a gift.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. Quincy Poet, since you were the VIP today, please send us your email, email us your address and that you're the VIP. And only Quincy Poet, no one else, because he's working hard.
What email address do you want him to send it to?
Yes, so we're gonna do info at blackmentalhealth.com. Yes, oh my God, you rocked it today.
You got it. Thanks for rocking with us.
All right.
All right.
Thank you guys.
See you later.
See you in a little bit.